Hi, I'm Mike Harrington, and in 2014, I embarked on a health journey resulting in my losing over 200 pounds on my own. Since then, I've been sharing my story and have become an advocate for healthy living. Welcome to Mike Inspires Me, a podcast show about health, wellness, and amazing people to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. Recently, I was laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and I was doing some breathing exercises as I was having a bit of a stressful day. And to help me kind of relax, I use those techniques where you take some breaths and kind of slowly count in and out. As I was doing it, a thought occurred to me in the beginning of the breathing exercise was, what if I forget to breathe? That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, why on earth would I forget to breathe? I have been doing it all my life, and that's completely irrational. Yet for a moment, I had a feeling of panic. I said, oh my gosh, if I go to sleep, what if I stopped breathing? Now, certainly, in the past, I've had sleep apnea, but that didn't completely stop my breathing. But I knew rationally that it was an irrational thought. And yet, for a moment there, I couldn't shake it. But why would something like that come into my mind? I've never had any problems with my breathing. I have certainly, other than the apnea, I've certainly overcome that too, and I no longer have that. But really, what it had to do with my state of mind at the moment. And in that moment, when I was not in the best frame of mind, these irrational thoughts can pop in and taunt me. And I feel like it's in those moments when anything that could be going on good in your life is overshadowed by the constant thoughts of what if this goes wrong and what if that goes wrong. So today, reflecting upon that incident, I want to talk about anxiety, worry, and generally mental health. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness each year. Now, these statistics are coming from 2019. 1 in 20 adults experience a serious mental illness each year. 1 in 6 youth in the United States, age 6 to 17, experience a mental health disorder each year. That's terrible. It's interesting that we talk about that, to pause in these statistics. I remember as a child, my mom used to say I was a sensitive child. And I do remember being a bit of a worrisome, sensitive child. And, you got to wonder when you look at children nowadays, and I'm 51, and I grew up in the 70s and 80s, what was going on? And, there certainly were things in my life that contributed to it, and certainly things that I learned and, who knows, inherited, right? But it's sad that a child can't just be free and enjoy their life and not have to worry about things until they're an adult, when they actually have real responsibilities. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by age 24. Lifetime mental illness. And this is one that's very sad, and I am sure it's I'm sure it could be, it may not even encompass everything, but suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. That's horrible. And certainly I can relate because I have been in that frame of mind. And it's sad when a person feels no other option in their life than ending it. Well, today we're going to explore a little bit more on some of these things. And although a somber subject, we're going to talk about some of the things that I've done and also provide a couple resources here. I certainly haven't done comprehensive research on resources, but I'm happy to provide some afterwards if people are interested. But I want to just talk about how it's affected my life, my personal experiences, where it brought me from. I've not hidden the fact that when I was super morbidly obese, when I weighed over 400 pounds, that it wasn't really what I was eating, it was what was eating me. You've heard me mention that if you listen to my shows many times. And so I lost all the weight. So ta-da, I'm great, right? And you've heard me mention this before. No, that didn't solve the root of the problem, okay? It certainly was something that needed to be done. Now, I certainly needed to take care of my physical health, and it vastly improved my mental health. It improved my self-esteem. It helped me have more confidence. It helped me to worry less. But the problems didn't go away, per se. And certainly the behaviors that were related to those problems haven't gone away. We've talked about some of those too. Binge eating and, self-loathing and in terms of behaviors. I'm not a big drinker, but I have used alcohol for mostly just, irresponsibly, but I don't do that too often. But I struggle with some of those things because the fact that it's just easy to go back to your old habits. We'll talk about later, though, and you've heard me talk about what some of the things I do to help with dealing with some of these issues and thoughts. And that's really what it comes down to is from day to day, all day, we have tens of thousands of thoughts flying through our heads. And for those of us that have gotten into a pattern of worry or into patterns of thoughts that are not healthy for us, that make us worry, that make us feel bad about ourselves, that make us hate ourselves, a lot of times they may not even be apparent. And some of these things, it enters the mind and then it triggers an emotion or it triggers a feeling. And in my case, it can happen within a day. I could start off, my day feeling good. And then one incident could happen at work and suddenly I'm worrying about everything. Now, I've mentioned I have over the past many months been carrying a low level of stress with some things I'm dealing with and financial things and other things that I dealt with. But in general, I've been in a good place. And that's the sad part. When I think about what's really going on in my life, I'm employed, I'm working from home, I make good money, I have a decent, really good, great relationship with my wife, Terry. I have kept healthy. People in my life, for the most part, are doing okay, doing well. There's no crisis going on. And yet there are days where I feel like I'm in a crisis. I feel like everything's falling apart and I just can't shake that feeling. And that's when I have to step back and say, okay, there's no lion chasing you. That's a saying that me and Terry have talked about for years. And because when you think about it, anxiety or worrying, those are adaptive type reactions to stress. Now, we can't always avoid stress. So in our lineage, in our past as human beings, if there was a lion nearby chasing us, we need to get worried, because if you didn't care, well, you're going to get attacked and possibly eaten. So the fight or flight response is perfectly normal in those circumstances, okay? When your life is in danger, it's perfectly normal to be scared, to worry. Unfortunately, now we have adapted and evolved to worry about things such as I bounced a check, or I'm having car trouble, right? That's actually another thing that constantly worries me. You know, Terry and I have been talking about getting another vehicle. I haven't gotten around to picking one out, but you know, we've had a couple small car issues over the past few months, and I wasn't quite ready to buy a car yet, and so for some reason, and I'm fairly handy with cars. I'm no mechanic, but I can fix things. But even that gives me anxiety sometimes, because I get worried that I have screwed things up. And that's the other problem with when your thoughts are disorganized or when you're worrying, is because when you're not operating optimally, because you're distracted by that. And I'm already a distractible person. I was diagnosed as a child with, back then, hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. So focus is a struggle. And, you know, when I do something like work on my car, you know, I have forgotten to do things when I'm not in a good state of mind. So, and the recent one is I didn't fully tighten the lug nuts on a front tire of a car. I was checking brakes, and, you know, fortunately it didn't cause any major issues, but I was noticing more problems, you know, with the car when I did that. And I said to myself, how on earth did I forget to do that? Getting absent-minded. Now, I'm telling you guys all these things, and I don't want you to worry about me, you know. And if my mom's listening to this, of course, she's going to worry about me. But my mom knows a lot of this stuff too. We talk sometimes. But what I want to tell you is, and I'm open about these things, is because I don't want you to feel like you're alone, okay? There has been for years a stigma about talking about mental health issues, okay? And people kind of feel very, very uncomfortable talking about these things. It's getting better now. I think, especially over the past year or so here with this COVID and pandemic issues, people having all kinds of other issues that have arisen. And the biggest problem is we now are in a mental health crisis in this country and in this world because of a variety of related problems to that. And we were already having mental health issues for a variety of reasons, and you hear them all. Social media causes problems. It's a double-edged sword. It's fantastic. I love connecting with all my friends and people I would have never have met through social media. But on the other hand, people compare each other, or people get into wars. And I mean, I've even personally experienced, you know, people being cut off in families through social media. And it's sad. It's sad, but it's a modern reality of life, and it affects people's mental health. Whether we want to poo-poo it, you might think it's ridiculous that I would get worried about what if I forget to breathe, but whatever it is, it's relative, okay? And it's real to me, and it's real to you, whatever that bothers you. And I don't want to minimize that. What we want to talk about is, okay, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with these things in a healthy manner? And the problem was, as I was growing up, I learned to be comforted with food. And so that's always easy. And a lot of us struggle with that. But it doesn't help, because the cycle just continues, and your health gets worse. And as your health gets worse, you feel worse, spirals out of control. And that's not what we want here. What we want to do is to stop that from happening. So today, for example, I was feeling, again, a little, just had nothing major, okay? This is a normal level. I had a little hectic morning. So I went out and I exercised, and during my lunch break, I did a little trail run. I don't do them often, but I have been lately, because they tend to burn some of those feelings off, and I came back and I felt good. It also allowed me the opportunity to focus on being present. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've done. And so certainly my routine of self-care has been imperative in my ability to deal with my day-to-day stressors. Okay. Now, I've seen therapists, I've seen them up till recently, okay, to deal with problems. I have in the past taken medications. I do not now. I prefer to try to deal with my things at the root of the issue and through more natural ways. Not against those things, and I'm not judging those things. They help people. But for me personally, I'm not using those things. So you've heard me talk. Remember, I did a podcast. Maybe you don't remember if you hadn't heard it, but you can go back and listen to it. It's called Self-Care Saved Me. And that's really what I talk about, is those things. I need to do those things on a daily basis, not just to deal with the stress I'm already dealing with, but to be ready to deal with it. Because as I practice meditation and mindfulness, it helps me focus on the here and now. So today, when I went out on that little trail run, I was starting to obsess a little bit about some things. And I said, whoa, what's going on right now? And then I listed off in my head all the things right now that were right and going well in my life. And I said, all these other things you're thinking about right now, granted, possible, but not necessarily realistic. And so that's the thing you got to ask yourself sometimes. And maybe they are things. I mean, here's the other thing. We worry about things over which we have no control, too. And there may be nothing you can do about it. And you're not doing yourself any good worrying. So there's a book I read not too long ago. And what they talked about in this book is about how the reason we worry about things is because we want certainty. Now, if we know that life is not really certain, there are always infinite possibilities. Now, that's what worries us. We want to know what the outcome is, but oftentimes we can't predict it. The world is full of possibilities, and they're full of positive possibilities as well. And it better behooves you to focus on those things as opposed to worrying about the infinitesimal problems that could possibly happen that are negative. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I've lost count of the number of times I've obsessed and worried all night about something that I thought might happen the next day, and it didn't happen. Wasted hours of potential happiness because of the fact that I was worrying about things that could happen. Now, the other night when I had that thought about the breathing thing, I was able to get over that pretty quickly, but it was a weird moment for me. But it stuck with me this past week because I was saying to myself, that's not like me. And I hadn't worried about that really before. But sometimes my mind, I feel like it starts to look for things. Oh, things are going too good. Got to find something that might go wrong so you can be prepared. Now, certainly that's part of my makeup, part of my being. I can't overcome those things, and I am. So the good news is, to talk about all these things, is there is hope. There is hope for those of us who worry. Now, if you're in a situation where you're really, really struggling, please don't try to deal with it just by yourself. Seek a professional, okay? If you can't afford it, some people's jobs have what's called EAP, employee assistance programs, and they can have a counselor. Just talk to somebody. It's so much better to just be able to get it out. And sometimes you'll find as you talk about these things, the problem doesn't seem quite as bad as you think. Talk to a friend or a clergy or a trusted person in your life, okay, so that you can just, I think I've always been one of those people. I didn't want to burden people with my problems. And I've had friends recently come to me and say they were struggling and they needed a shoulder to lean on. And here I struggle too. And I said, but the interesting thing, helping my friends helps me too. And it kind of made me feel like, I guess I'm not the only one here. And I didn't feel great that my friend was struggling. I felt horrible. But at the same time, I felt good that I could at least be something to somebody. And it felt good. Now, I shouldn't always have to have that. I should feel good inside of myself. But in those moments, it helps me too. It helps me too to know that I'm of a help. It helps me feel like, intrinsically I should feel worthwhile, but sometimes you need a little boost too, and helping others does help you. For those of you who just have a low level of stress, but you want a way to just deal with those things, look up some of those meditation apps. I said meditation, not medication, meditation apps. There's some great ones. I use one that is really fantastic. It's called Atom. I think it's only available for Android, ATOM. But there's a bunch of them out there, and they teach you breathing, focus, and mindfulness. Because when we're constantly worrying about the future, that uncertainty, or ruminating on the past of something we did, worrying about consequences, we're not doing anything to make the situation better. And if it's something that over which you have no control, you're in some sort of situation that there's really nothing you can do, well, it behooves you at some point, because you deserve to be healthy and happy, to try to find a way to not focus so much on that and focus on the goodness in your life. That's another piece, and I've talked about that, is gratitude. And it sounds silly and stupid sometimes. And I was actually just talking about it with my wellness coordinator group at work, because I'm actually on the mental health segment of that group. And we were talking about setting up a gratitude wall. And some of the things they showed me from years past when they've done these gratitude walls, that people posted up things they were grateful for, like clean water. And you think to yourself, oh, that's a silly thing. But you know what? There's people in this world that don't have clean water. Or, I'm grateful that I have a job, or I'm grateful that things maybe you take for granted. I'm grateful for my car that gets me to work, even though it's I don't drive to work, but those type of things help you kind of look at. And then when you start adding those things up, and maybe you even make a list, you write them down. Maybe here's something, okay? You try it for me. Just write down, and you probably already, if you're a worrier and you've already got 50 things you're worrying about, just sit down and write down just 6 things to yourself and that you're grateful for, that you have it. You think to yourself, because sadly, there's always somebody that's worse off. Sometimes we look at other people and we envy them, and we say to ourselves, oh man, I wish I had what they have. But you know what? You don't really know what's going on in their lives. So be grateful. Well, I've gone on a little long today. It was actually longer than I thought it would. And I probably will do more of these talks on mental health, because mental health is health. And mental health affects your body and your spirit, not just your mind. And you deserve to be healthy and happy. And health is also your mental state. It is how you feel about yourself and how you navigate through the world and how you view the world. And that can be changed little by little over time. You can learn to adapt and adopt new behaviors to help you feel better. And I hope you are doing well. I truly do. And I hope that this podcast can be of use to you. And I really want folks to reach out to me if you feel that you have some questions. I'm more than happy to try to help find resources for you to help you get through some of the problems you're struggling. That's my goal in life, is to help people take charge of their lives so they can be healthy and happy. Inspire people to take charge of their lives and their health. If you have any questions for me, reach out to Mike at mikeinspiresme.com. Take care of yourself and stay well. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mike Inspires Me podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out some of the past ones you may have missed. For more information on me and my story, go to MikeInspiresMe.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Mike Harrington Official and on Twitter at Mike Inspires Me. Stay healthy and stay awesome.